Welcome to Truth by Billie Beene. Today's date, June 9, 2025. Time in Texas about 1 p.m. And I'd like to say thank you to Leisha E. for extra support for my channel. Now, over the weekend, we had some super duper storms in north and central Texas, extending into Oklahoma plus. So currently we have in Texas, in north and central Texas, about 350,000 people without electricity. In Oklahoma, about 40,000. So we pray that those lines get going soon. It's awful to be without power. Some of the sources I'll use today, Steve Quayle's aggregate site, a recent interview of Greg Hunter, USA Watchdog, of Martin Armstrong, Israeli News Live, recent interview of DEVORAH TAVARES, plus some of the things I'll cover. President Trump, no to Ukraine and NATO. President Trump activates the U.S. military. And intel, Graham Plus knew, but President Trump did not. So we're talking about traitors. So a major topic now going on are the riots in California. Now, just before the JB show got out of power, that would be in December of 24, we had billions of dollars moved out of the energy department to individuals and groups, not vetted, no business plan, supposedly for energy projects. It turns out now this was a move by the Dems to go to Soros, money for the illegals, and currently carrying out the protest in Los Angeles, California. I believe it's spreading to San Francisco, and we look for it to also move down to San Diego. And my Facebook friends have it right. We have illegals carrying out these protests, waving their nation's flags outside the U.S. And ICE says they appreciate that because it helps them locate the illegals. And then based on the flag they're waving, they know where to deport them. But my Facebook friends declare that these illegals engaging in riots against American law, waving foreign flags, demonstrate an act of war, clearly coming under the Alien Enemies Act, for which President Trump can activate the military, which is what he is doing. And we have this, that President Trump has activated the National Guard 2,000 for up to 60 days in California without the consent of the governor, Newsom. And this is the first time the U.S. government has done this since 1965, when President Johnson activated the National Guard into Alabama to settle down the civil rights protest. So that's going on. And we have this. Yeah, President Trump has activated the current, he's activated Marines also under Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth as needed. So that's going on. And we have this from Michael JACO. There are 17 cities in the U.S. It's believed planned by the Dems. And if you are an American citizen still self-identifying as a Dem, the question is, why? They're engaged in insurrection against America. So the Dems have a plan to activate these protests in 17 different cities, including Seattle, Portland, Washington State, and California, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, Denver, Colorado, Phoenix, Arizona, in Texas, and Dallas, and Austin, New Orleans and Louisiana, Chicago and Illinois, St. Louis, Missouri, Atlanta, Georgia, Miami, Florida, New York City, Baltimore, Maryland, Washington, D.C., Milwaukee. So that's going on. We can expect that. So President Trump is well aware of the Dems' plan and is activating the military. And we have this from a Facebook friend. President Trump had an executive order that covered servers to be seized by the U.S. military. That was with regard to the 2020 presidential election, which was definitely an act of war orchestrated by CCP, and other nations were involved. And this had to do with the shootout in Frankfurt, Germany, in November of 2020 between the U.S. military and the rogue CIA. In my last video, a couple of videos, I covered that the director, Gina Haspel, was wounded. She was arrested and taken to Gitmo. But the U.S. military did seize the servers, and the individuals involved in assisting the CCP in overthrowing the U.S. government in 2020 is on record with the DOJ, so that's going on. And we have this, that, there were several cities involved. Tel Aviv, Israel, was involved. That would be Mossad. We know there's a rogue CIA, a rogue MI6, a rogue Mossad. They were also involved in the overthrow of the U.S. government in 2020. And we're hearing that the Rothschild banks are going down. Swiss accounts are frozen. The JB hedge fund is liquidating. President Trump is activating the U.S. military. So that's going on. And a prosecuting of traitors will come forth in the near future. And we also have individuals who are rogue in the U.S. military. Some at Raven Rock, Cheyenne Mountain in Nevada. So that's going on. And President Trump has a secure location to go to in the event that a direct assassination attempt is made on him in the near future by the rogue CIA plus. So that's going on. All these parts are coming out. And we have this. I have this from a Patriot subscriber. It's been a long time since I served in the military. I was in for about 20 years. And I do know the Marines and the Navy do not fall under posse comitatus. Posse comitatus is U.S. law that says the U.S. military cannot be involved in law enforcement against U.S. citizens. However, we do know, and apparently my Patriot subscriber knows, the Marines and Navy can be activated, and President Trump is activating the Marines along with the National Guard. And also, my Patriot subscriber says the Space Force is also exempt from Pussy Comitatus. And so that's going on. And under special circumstances, the Marines, the Navy, and the Space Force can be activated. And this includes continuity of government. So, yeah, that's going on. And now we have this. I have a Patriot subscriber talking about the Civil War movie could equal the rogue CIA. And we're seeing chemtrails decreasing in some areas. And so that's going on. And now we have this. From the cool down. Yeah, so we're seeing weather changes on a global basis. That has to do with impacts from space, a decreasing electromagnetic shield around the Earth. So in Serbia, the farmers who raise raspberries and strawberries are seeing their crop destroyed by April frost and May snow. And they usually harvest in June, but there's nothing to harvest. So it would be good to keep the farmers in Serbia and around the world in our prayers. And we have this, President Trump has activated the National Guard in view of the ongoing riots in Los Angeles, where we see them burning police cars, throwing, they had pre-positioned cinder blocks. Now, my position is, I believe law enforcement and the U.S. military should snapshot these so-called protesters. We know they're paid protesters, primarily illegal aliens, and ICE, during the course of these protests, is also carrying on arrest. And ICE and Border Patrol and U.S. Marshals. So there's a big conflab going on in Los Angeles. And we have this. It's a dangerous time in the U.S. And now it's coming out. I believe Dr. William Allen is saying that Dems have been in South America providing money to weapons buyers and the cartels to then smuggle weapons into the U.S. for the illegals and the paid protesters to use against American citizens. And the cartels have been declared by President Trump as a foreign terrorist organizations. So that's going on. And from the Independent, the second day of the Soros-paid protest, interfering with the federal law and ICE, plus arresting illegals. And we have, this is where I brought out JB's regime shipped out billions of dollars in December that went to Soros to pay for these riots. So we have that going on. And now we have this from Mediate. The Dems are backing the illegal aliens, and the particular illegal alien the Dems were raising Cain about getting back into the U.S., Alejandro Garcia, has been indicted. He was shipped out to El Salvador. The Dems managed to bring him back in using rogue judges. But now he's been indicted, I believe that was in Tennessee, for conspiracy and transporting illegals. So way to go, Dems. Backing criminals, foreign criminals. From CNN. CNN put out another fake story that had to do with that recent hit by Ukraine into Russia on Russia's nuclear triad that violated several international treaties that both the U.S. and Russia had signed on to. CNN immediately put out a fake story that Secretary of Defense Hegseth had been watching the attack in real time. It's now coming out that was a fake story. And we have this. CNN also put out a fake story regarding President Trump and about the protest in Los Angeles being peaceful. Nothing about them is peaceful. These protesters, the illegals, have pre-positioned bricks that they're throwing at the police and setting vehicles on fire, destroying stores. Now, it's believed by military analysts and also geopolitical analysts that it's only a matter of time before these protesters and illegals begin using guns. So that's going on. And they're all wearing masks, President Trump noted, the protesters and illegals. And he wants to make that illegal to wear masks when you're demonstrating or engaged in protest. And now we have this from INFOWARS-ALEX Jones from Before It's News. Yes. So recently we saw FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Don Bongino interviewed on TV saying that Epstein in 2019 suicided himself. Well, that's been refuted in the past, and it's being refuted now. Fox News interviewed Dr. Michael Baden, B-A-D-E-N, retired pathologist, considered a world-class pathologist, who stated on Fox News recently that he had either personally looked at the body of Epstein or had personally reviewed the autopsy reports, which revealed that Epstein died actually from breaks around his neck, a broken neck, consistent with murder, not suicide. And we have Kash Patel and Don Bongino stating on TV that they had reviewed the FBI records, and the FBI records stated that Epstein suicided himself. Well, there aren't many American citizens who actually believe a lot of information the FBI puts out. But it's curious that Patel and Bongino are going on TV putting out this information. And now we have this from USA Watchdog. Greg Hunter interviewed recently Martin Armstrong, internationally famous economist who also works with and puts out information with his predictive software Socrates. And he's bringing out also some intel he's received from his global contacts. He states that 41 Russian planes were hit. That would be a major percentage of Russia's strategic nuclear triad with regard to their planes. And he says that according to his intel, both Lindsey Graham, Senator from South Carolina, and Blumenthal and Mike Pompeo had previous knowledge of the pending attack, but that President Trump did not, which foundates the position many analysts are taking that there is a rogue CIA, a rogue MI6, a rogue Mossad working with the deep state and definitely want to take down President Trump. And now, and it's intel Martin Armstrong puts out, Zelensky hoped that this attack that Ukraine and the rogue elements did on the planes inside Russia, Zelensky hoped Russia would then attack the U.S. Zelensky should receive no more U.S. money, weapons, or intel. And President Trump is currently withdrawing weapons from Europe and sending them to the Middle East. President Trump has also cut off money to Ukraine. We don't know yet about the intel. Martin Armstrong has been in contact with Washington, D.C. The predictive software Socrates has, for several years, been recommending that the U.S. get out of NATO. And Martin Armstrong reports that there are positive moves now in Washington, D.C. for the U.S. to withdraw from NATO. So that's good. That's going on. And we have this, that Europe is broke and Europe pushes for war. We know the deep state is also in control of NATO. Now, Martin Armstrong states this: the economy is crashing in Japan, and that will lead to a crash in Germany. Now, there had been a Christian prophet. It might have been the late, John Paul, who said, in the future, with global economics, look for first a crash in Japan, then Germany, then the U.S. So that's going on. Yes, and Graham and Blumenthal knew about the Ukraine attack before it happened. And that information was hidden from President Trump and from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. And we see the CNN putting out fake stories, and we know that the mainstream media is controlled by the deep state. And now we have this. A recent interview of David Nino Rodriguez of SG, that we can expect to see the U.S. military being activated inside the U.S., and that U.S. Northcom confirms deployment to various cities, especially for July 4th. Now, we had information coming out. Israeli News Live recently interviewed Deborah Tavares. She was citing several U.S. documents. I verified those are accurate documents. You can go on Israeli News Live interview with Deborah Tavares to his site, and he has links to 3 different U.S. government documents regarding a U.S. government putting in place such things as martial law. And also SG is putting forth that 14 U.S. cities could be attacked with protesters and illegals. And Michael JACO had that. These are the cities I'm putting forth. So that's going on. President Trump is also describing what's going on in Los Angeles as rebellion, which does come under the Insurrection Act. And we have this. Yeah, it's predicted the protesters paid by Soros and illegals will riot in the blue cities and incite violence It's widely anticipated by both the U.S. military and the U.S. government that these protests will turn violent and involve, well, they're already in Los Angeles using explosive devices, but will involve guns, and it's anticipated that the protesters and illegals may also try to go house to house in U.S. cities and simply shoot the American citizens. The deep state plot and plan is to destroy America from within. So that's going on. So President Trump is right to activate both the National Guard and the Marines from Camp Pendleton. So President Trump called up the 2,000 California National Guard without the consent of Newsom. And we have this from Israeli News Live. Planeteer, we know, is involved in AI and SpaceX, and also is involved in U.S. drones. And it's believed the deep state will also try to use drones in these protester attacks. Am I tying Planeteer and SpaceX to the protest? I'm not. But the deep state could have rogue elements in both the U.S. military and in SpaceX. So we need to pray against that. Alexander Makarras, inside Ukraine, Russia, since the attack on Russia's nuclear triad, their planes have been hitting Ukraine very hard and have moved up to the Dnipro River and are going beyond. So that's going on. And we have this. The U.S. military has put a fourth U.S. military destroyer, a warship. So we have in the Gulf of America, we now have 4 U.S. warships activated. We have the USS Cole, the Gravely, and the Stockdale, and the Spruness. So these, we had 3 activated, and President Trump in the last week has activated a 4th warship. And we also have in this area the USS Sampson. So that's going on. The U.S. military is activating. Now, we had something interesting put out by Ward Carroll. June 1 was when the deep state, Ukraine, attacked the part of Russia's nuclear triad, their planes inside Russia, in violation of international treaties, which President Trump and President Trump's envoy to Ukraine, General Keith Kellogg, stated directly to Zelensky that that move was unacceptable. So we have now established that we have rogue treasonous senators, Lindsey Graham, Blumenthal, a former government employee, Mike Pompeo, who knew about the attack before it happened. And obviously, we have rogue CIA who set on the information. I submit that this would translate also to the rogue FBI, rogue MI6 in UK, rogue Mossad in Israel. President Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and many others in the U.S. government did not know about the attack. So this happened on June 1, and on June 1, we had President Trump's head of the U.S. Military Joint Chiefs, General Kane, and we had Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, who had been attending a defense meeting in Singapore. Now, both of them flew into Nellis, that's in Nevada, Air Force Base in Nevada, in their VIP planes. Then they got into a smaller plane, a C-12, and flew together to Area 51 in Nevada, Groom Lake. And it turns out that Groom Lake, which is a dry lake near Area 51, that has, in the past few years, been concreted over to use as a testing ground for the new hypersonic super duper plane named recently in honor of President Trump, number 47. And it appears that they have been testing this plane for 5 years. I find it curious that Kane and Hegseth, on June 1, the day of the attack on Russia, both went to Area 51. It's believed that they are, this is supposed to be Generation 6 hypersonic new type plane, that they both went there to review its situation for possible deployment. So this concludes my update today. It's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.